Welcome to XYPN Radio, where your host Alan Moore brings you into a community of fee-only financial planners who want to profitably and successfully serve Gen X and Gen Y clients. If you're ready to get the knowledge you need from leaders in your field, learn from forward-thinking advisors, and take action on your own goals, XYPN Radio is the show for you. Here's your host.
Hello and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I am your host, Alan Moore, and I'm excited to have XYPN member Catie Hogan on the show today. Catie is the founder of Hogan Financial Planning based in Columbus, Georgia. Catie had plans to become an actress, but ultimately found her way into financial services. After a few years in the business, her and her husband moved to South Georgia, where she started her own financial planning firm. Catie has built a small practice that is the perfect size for her lifestyle, as she spends a lot of time providing financial literacy to groups as well as a sketch comedian in Atlanta. We talked about how she uses humor to engage clients and how that works to help them achieve financial success. She wrote a book called The Millennial's Guide to Getting Your Stuff Done, semi-serious essays on money, career, and relationships, and has leveraged it to get speaking engagements, consulting gigs, and even clients. Missed calls or missed opportunities. Don't miss the chance to connect or bring on a new client. With Ruby, all your calls are answered live by a team of friendly, professional, remote receptionists, helping you win more clients and build trust. Let Ruby help you turn rings into relationships. For a special offer, visit callruby.com/XYPN and use promo code XYPN or call them at 1-844-853-7829. You can find any of the additional resources that we mentioned during the episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/145. Also, be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private group just for XYPN Radio listeners. It's the community of advisors we've all been looking for that's there to provide support when we need it the most. Best of all, it's free. I encourage you to check it out. Again, that's xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP. Without further ado, here's my interview with Catie. Hey, Catie, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being on.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
I'm really excited to learn more about sort of your path and the work that you're doing, because you have your hands involved in a lot of different pots that are very cool and unique and yet contribute back to doing financial planning. So I'm excited to learn more. For the benefit of listeners, could you sort of give me an overview of sort of where the business stands today? And then we'll dig into the details sort of as we go. So sort of where you're located, how many clients you're working with, and then sort of the various things that you're working on.
Sure, yeah. So I am out of Columbus, Georgia, which is about an hour southwest of Atlanta. And I only work with about a dozen people right now. And that is kind of for a reason, because I am doing a lot of other things that I don't want to, you don't want to overbook yourself and then not be able to deliver the kind of, relationship that you want and benefit that you want to give to each and every client. So yeah, I've capped it at about 12 right now, just because it is me. And so what I do is I do the financial planning stuff, and then I actually teach a lot of financial literacy workshops, and I do a lot of speaking gigs. And I went to we were just talking beforehand about people who went to liberal arts colleges and became financial planners, and I am one of those people. So I write a lot. So I like to use a lot of my time to write about personal finance and kind of connect with my target demographic that way. So that's what I have been doing.
Awesome. And we're going to dig into each of those pieces, because I think it's important for listeners to hear an example of, you living your great life and building a business that allows you the flexibility to be able to do some various pieces of that you want to be able to do, that it's not just about, or not always just about growing a business as big as you can make it or bringing on as many clients as possible.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Talk to me about that liberal arts background, sort of what was your degree in, and then sort of what was your path into financial planning?
Sure. Yeah. And I kind of talk about this in my book, and I'll talk about that later. But I went to Emerson College, and I was going to be a journalist. And I've always loved writing. And I graduated and found myself in the middle of a recession with no job and $100,000 in student loans. And so I kind of, and I was completely financially illiterate. And so I was panicking, and like many of my classmates were. And so what I did was I started reading personal finance books, and I found that I loved reading about it. I found that most of the books were like painfully boring, but I loved gaining this knowledge, and I really enjoyed, applying it into my own life. And I could start to see a difference in how I was handling my own money. And I thought, man, I was like an honor student my whole life and everything, but if I don't know this stuff and I didn't understand any of this personal finance stuff, I'm willing to bet that there are millions of others like me. And that turned out to exactly be the case. So I decided, you know what, I want to continue down this path. I want to keep learning more about, advising and finance in general. So I, went and worked for a traditional brokerage and got a, really good training there, but then found that, they wanted me to go chase after 80-year-old millionaires who hated taking advice from a 27-year-old with no experience. So, after a couple of years, maybe about a couple of years, I started doing some research, and I actually found XY Planning Network, and you guys were just babies at that point. And I started researching, and I talked to some other people who were out on their own. And I thought, you know what, I really want to reach young millennial women, especially, but I didn't know how to do it. So I continued the research, joined XYPN, and then launched Hogan Financial Planning officially in April of 2016. So we're just about at that 2-year mark now.
2 years. Does it feel like it's been 2 years?
I mean, some days it feels like it's been a decade. And some days it feels like it's been a week. It depends. I am so thankful to still be operating. It's like great to still have my doors open. And we have really evolved in a way that is completely unexpected. Like I for sure thought I would just go the, a very traditional route. But now I do some things that are very untraditional. And I think that's kind of, it's actually been a huge benefit to my business.
So just for my clarity, were you working as a financial planner before you launched your firm, or you were just sort of looking at the industry and it didn't make sense for you?
Well, I was working at Edward Jones, and I had taken over an office, and all of my clients were, much older than me, and it was just very difficult for me to build that relationship. And I was working, and I loved working with those people, and it was great and everything. But I just was like, you know what? I feel like I could connect and help people around my age more effectively. And I think there's a better way to do business. And I think that we can be more transparent, and we can be more honest, and we can really not just help people with their investment portfolios, but I really wanted to help people on a more personal level. I knew that the only way I was going to be able to do that was to eventually go out on my own.
Now, were you in Columbus, Georgia that entire time, or did you move to Columbus after that?
I moved to Columbus after that. So I was up near Nashville, Tennessee when I worked for Edward Jones. And, it was a great experience. I learned a ton and everything, and got to learn from a lot of very experienced people. But yeah, again, I just, when I moved down to Georgia, the time felt right. And I was just itching to get out on my own and do things my way. I'm very stubborn, very, very much want to do things how I see fit and what I think is best. And it's kind of been a lifelong dream to be my own business owner too. So I'm glad that I did it.
So for anyone that doesn't know, if you were in the military or from the South, then Columbus is sort of the hub of the Army. It's one of the big Army bases, as well as, if I remember correctly, AFLAC's headquarters is there. Is that right?
Yeah.
So that's so anyone that says they live in Columbus, Georgia, they work for AFLAC or their significant other or themselves are in the military. I'm assuming that is what took you to Columbus.
It is. Yeah. My husband is in the Army. He's been in the Army for about 9 years now. And so we've for a bit moved all over, but we'll be in Columbus for a while. So I'm glad to have that stability somewhat now. But again, that was another reason why I eventually wanted to go out on my own, because it was getting to a point where, I was working for Edward Jones and it's just, they have the one man office kind of thing. So it was going to be next to impossible for me to transfer anything down to Georgia when we found out we were going to have to move. So, I didn't really want to give up my career. And I, again, had to find out a way that I could make it work. And so going out on my own was really the answer to all of my problems. So that's another big reason why I decided to launch.
Yeah, I think it's an important piece that a lot of times we don't think about, especially early on when we're young, is, having a career that's flexible, that allows you to move, because you just never know when your significant other is going to want to move, and you don't want to give up your career to be able to move, nor do you want your significant other to have to give up their career dreams because you can't move. So it's, there's always this balance, and to be able to have a career and to have a firm that, if you needed to pack up and move tomorrow, you could. Is freeing. I feel like it's nice to have that flexibility, even if you never utilize it. And like I said, Edward Jones is very much a, go knock on doors of local, of houses in your community. And that job is never moving. It's just the way it is. Right. So do you work with most of your clients virtually, or are most of your clients there in Columbus?
All of my clients are virtual. Okay. So that was a big thing. So I am originally from Massachusetts. So most of my network of family, friends, people I used to work with, just everybody I know is up north. So I've gotten, I'm obviously registered in Massachusetts because I just, that's where my people are, and that's where they know me. So yeah, I moved down to Georgia, and I didn't know anyone. And I've been really fortunate to meet a lot of great friends while I've been down here. But so I am from up north, and I just decided, I want this firm to be 100% virtual. It makes it easy for me. It makes it easy for them. And so, I actually just today got another client in Massachusetts. So that was pretty great.
Oh, that's awesome. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks.
So whenever you were looking at launching your own firm, obviously XYPN Network was around when you were launching, which was awesome. Can you talk to me about sort of that process of launching your own firm, having, run an office, but never having launched a business before, and sort of the process that you went through to get your firm launched up and running?
Yeah, it was, I would say 8 months of planning. So in 2015, I left Edward Jones, and I knew I wanted to do this, but, I've never run a business or anything like that before. And this was very scary, very overwhelming. So when I found, the XY Planning Network, I connected with a group of 5 or 6 people, and we all met. At first, I think we met weekly, and then monthly, and then quarterly, and now we just kind of all check in on it with each other still. But to have the resources there, to have the support there, I mean, before I launched, I was asking like 10 questions a day to the people that small group of, just what do I need to do? What are the next steps? And it really, for me, it was about finding out what was urgent, what could wait, and then, what was just, miscellaneous stuff I could get done whenever. And that's really kind of become a part of my financial planning process is breaking down action steps into digestible bites that are separated by urgency. So what can we do this week? What can we do this month? What can we do in the next 6 months? And what can we do in the next year? And so I kind of took that of, that's how I launched my business, is by figuring out, what do I need to do today? What do I need to do this week? And so on. And then I was like, you know what? That actually really works. And I think I can apply that into my financial planning practice as well. So with every client, that's we set our goals, and then, once everything is said and done, all right, and we're ready to implement it, I always break it down that way. What can we do today? What can we do this week? What can we do this month? And I just think that's a good way to just tackle anything in general. And it was kind of, XY that gave me that idea to do that. And then, of course, they gave me the resources, and then they gave me, God bless Scott Gill, because that guy, he's what an angel.
He's awesome.
What an angel. And so without him, I wouldn't have been able to do anything. It was so great to have those resources, those people there. And then to find out, for me, it's all about breaking things down into digestible bites every single day.
I think that's a really great parallel, that the launching of a financial planning firm is very similar to a financial plan, because it really is, what are our goals? Where are we going? And then what's the plan to get there? It's, a massive project management plan, essentially, for anybody that has been through project management courses. And that, I like how you frame the making it bite-sized pieces, because if, the old adage is, if you give someone, 3 things to do, they won't get anything done. But if you give them one thing to do, they'll do it. Mm-hmm. And sure that you know what the next thing is that needs to get done. Because that's I see all the time people posting, whenever you're going to be launching your firm, you should be prepared, 80 and 90 hour weeks for the first several years, and you'll never get another vacation. And it's like, it doesn't actually have to be that way.
Right.
But if you're always looking at the long list of things to do, then no, you'll never get done, because there's always something you could be doing. But prioritizing the things you could be doing with the things that actually have to get done, so that they actually do get done, and you avoid being overwhelmed and eventually burn out.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely the most difficult thing to learn as a first-time business owner and business launcher, is that the to-do list will never end.
Ever.
and as soon as you can accept that and make peace with it, you can then kind of create some order in your life and prioritize more effectively. Because if all right, I can get through these 5 things today, but I know there's another 10 things I need to do this week. Okay, get those 5 things done. And then, if it's 6 p.m., quit for the day. That's okay. That's absolutely okay to do that. You've got those things done. The to-do list isn't going anywhere, and I think if you can become an excellent time manager and again, live by what you're telling your clients of, these action items that are listed by urgency, and you do that as well in your own practice, I think you'll be even more of an effective business owner and planner. And so it's easier said than done, because, I probably will work till like 7:00 tonight, but, it is.
Do as we say, not as we do. That's the key.
I know. I say all these things, and then, I'll find myself on like a Saturday night getting stuff done. And I'm like, you know what? This is not good. I got to quit.
Do you have a tool, like a project management tool or task manager, that you use to track all of those various priorities?
Well, yeah, I sort of, it depends. I do use Google Calendar like religiously. And so I know every single day what is on my calendar and, what time everything's going to be. So I'm never going to miss anything. And so I would say I have become great at Google Calendar. and that's been the most effective way for me to kind of handle everything that I need to get done in a day.
Probably that's sort of considered like a block timing or block time strategy, where you're just blocking off. And then if you don't get something done, you can shift it over to your other days. But I'm always looking for project management tools. I'm so bad with task lists, and where to keep them.
Well, I use Evernote as well. Evernote I've found to be, because I have like a million thoughts going through my head at all times, and so whenever I get a thought popping into my head, I'll put it into Evernote. I have it broken down into million different folders and categories and things like that. So Evernote I found to be a great way to keep everything going through my head in an organized fashion.
And it is so hard to do that, because as an entrepreneur, as a creative thinker, and as someone who, when you have a business, you have space to be creative, because you can actually implement your ideas. It's just this constant flow of ideas coming out of your head. So how do you prioritize what needs to get done today? Because your list of things in Evernote are probably about 1,000 things long now. And how do you prioritize? Like, today I'm going to work on writing a book, or today I'm going to, go out and try to find more clients, or I'm going to do something else. Like, how do you make some of those decisions?
Right. Yeah. So I try to break it down by day. So I usually take Mondays to write and catch up on emails. And then like Tuesdays, I will I'll do a bunch of stuff I try to schedule all my meetings with clients on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, if possible. And then on Thursdays, I'll do some marketing stuff. And then on Fridays, I'll do, so I try to have a theme of the day, I guess, which doesn't always, people call, people email, and it's never going to go perfectly. But I find if I can have a theme of the day, whether it's a writing day or a client day or a marketing day, that keeps me it makes it a little bit easier to then prioritize by that category. So if I have a client day, I'll go say, okay, we got to get this done first, that done first, this, and then the rest of it can wait. And so I think that just having a theme of the day is for me a good way to go through my week.
Figuring out time management is one of the harder things to do as an entrepreneur, and one of the more critical things that you're going to have to figure out how to do. So I appreciate you sharing sort of your process on how you balance that, because it is important that, you sort of have your vision for what all you want to get done, but also prioritizing, again, what's the thing that needs to get done today? What's that one big thing or the three things? And everyone works a little bit differently. Some people, believe the swallow the toad, knock it out first, do the one thing that you hate doing early in the morning and just get it over with.
I agree with that. Yeah.
That's your strategy as well. Everyone's sort of got their thing. Yeah. I always just look at it in my inbox, just thinking I really don't want to do that. And then when you finally do it, it's it took 5 minutes, but it drained so much energy thinking about the fact that you had to do it. So just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? I just learned a really great tip about this. I just read a book. I think it was called Resisting Happiness. And it was about everything, we go to work and in the first thing in the morning, we think about the things that we don't want to do. And we have to see, kind of understand, step away from that thought and see, okay, all this is resistance. And resistance is the only thing standing in front of, my success. And so if you just recognize those thoughts as only resistance and then just jump in and do them anyways, and it minimizes the, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. And it makes you more productive. And so it's kind of like this weird little hack that I really don't want to do X, Y, or Z today. But if you think, okay, that thought right there, that's all that is resistance. And that is resistance. Once you recognize it and understand that that's the roadblock sitting between you and success, then you can say, okay, that's all that is. Now I got to finish X, Y, and Z. And that's going to help me get to where I want to go. And so that was Resisting Happiness. I just really read that the other day and I was like, you know what, that's super helpful.
Yeah. I like the way that's framed, that our brains are wired to just not help us sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Overcoming your natural tendencies and natural inertia is so challenging. I highly recommend the book, The Power of Habit, because it digs into a lot of these things where you develop habits without even realizing it. And suddenly, sometimes it's fine. And then sometimes it can be detrimental to your success because you don't recognize, that the resistance that you have coming up on those types of things. And it's so important to be introspective on that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I actually did, I read that a few years ago and I can't say that I developed any better habits, but maybe I need to read it. I got to read it again.
Yeah. It was just fascinating learning how the brain works. And that's for advisors. That's the piece that I think is most critical in working with your clients, recognizing that, when we go through CFP school and you learn the science of financial planning, the assumption is always, just like everything in economics, that everyone will act, in their self-interest and everyone will do everything that they're supposed to do right when they're supposed to do it. And it's just not the way the world works. People make irrational decisions. They make bad decisions. There's not always enough money to do everything that their financial plan would call for. So having those trade-offs and having those conversations and just understanding how the brain is wired and quite honestly, how it contributes to poor decision making.
Absolutely.
is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. I've really gotten interested in that whole, the behavioral finance and all that, and the science behind why people do certain things with their money. And I think the more we can understand it as planners, and the more we can accept our clients and their inherent flaws and our own flaws, I think the more effective we can be in our relationship with them.
Yeah, I think planners can be really hard on their clients sometimes. I mean, I have had conversations with advisors say if I had an overspending client, I would fire them. And I was in this situation with one of the firms I was at, that we had a client that was spending through an inheritance. And, I've asked my boss at one point, I was like, are we going to let this client go? She's clearly not listening to what we say. And he said, I've thought about it, obviously. But the truth is, what I think of is she better off because we are in her life than if not. If by us remaining her financial planner, we can give her 3 or 5 or 10 years more of spending because we can curtail it some. We're not going to fix the problem, but we can curtail it. Then have we done our job? Is she better off having us in our life? And the answer is, of course. But we don't think of it that way. We think basically it's like if our clients aren't perfect and doing everything we say exactly when we say it, we think they're doing the wrong thing. Like that, it's okay. Clients are coming to us in many different places, and our business model that we promote allows us to actually work with those clients. And it's not just about, they're spending down their assets, so they're spending down my fee, which is cool that, it lets us sort of work with a different client base.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, that's right on. And I don't know if I've ever had a perfect client. I don't know if a perfect client exists.
I don't think that. Because if they were perfect, they wouldn't need us.
Because
right? They wouldn't come to us.
Exactly.
So you mentioned earlier having written a book. And so I pulled up the title. So The Millennial's Guide to Getting Your Stuff, for everybody with kids in the car, for getting your stuff together, semi-serious essays on money, career, and relationships. Tell me about just sort of the book itself and where the idea came from to write it.
Sure. Yeah. So again, I went to school to be a writer, and so writing is in my blood. I've written in journals, and I've used to write for a newspaper. And I love to write. And so writing a book has kind of been always something that I wanted to accomplish. But I wanted to write a book that I hadn't seen before. I wanted to write something that my 23-year-old self would have really needed and enjoyed. Like I said, when I first started this whole journey into personal finance and financial planning, the books I was reading, they were useful, they were informative, but they were boring, and they just weren't entertaining. And I do comedy on the side. So I do a lot of comedy in Atlanta. And a friend of mine once was like, you just incorporate this stuff into your job, and people will really connect with you more as a planner. Because when we think of planners, again, and XY is doing a great job at breaking down all these old stereotypes of what financial planning looks like, but people still see, older guys in their 50s and 60s, and they only want to work with rich people. And that's just frankly not who needs my help. And so I really wanted to connect with people who are like me, people who have student loans, people who are pursuing creative endeavors, people who, enjoy humor and, would buy tickets to go see Amy Schumer. And that's the kind of person I want to connect with. So I wrote this book, it's an essay format. So it's broken down into essays on money, career, and relationships. And at first I was only going to write about money, and then I was only going to write about money and career. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to throw in relationships too, because even though I'm not some life coach or a relationship expert, I think it's important, because people in their 20s, when they're getting their stuff together, relationships are a big part of that. And learning how to talk about money with your significant other, and, learning how to navigate your career, and learning how to, how should I invest, and how should I save, and what should I do first, and this and that and the other thing. So I included all of that, but I also really wanted it to be humorous and something they could connect with personally. So a lot of it's, very much from my own personal story. And then I try to make as many jokes and infuse as much humor as humanly possible. And a lot of it is crude and definitely for the 18 plus crowd. I will say that. But the response I've gotten from it has been amazing. And it's not a New York Times bestseller or anything. I self-published it on Amazon, but it has connected exactly how I hoped it would connect with the people who I really want to work with and who I really want to help. And I've gone on some really great podcasts, like pop culture podcasts, and I've gotten to do a few TV appearances and things like that, and it's been so cool and just really great to people, everybody I talk to that's read it, they're like, oh man, I never knew about, how a 401k works, or how the difference between a Roth and a traditional IRA. And I didn't know this, and I didn't know how to negotiate for a raise, and I didn't know how to talk to my boyfriend or girlfriend about money and things like that. And so they're getting something out of it, but at the same time, they're like, oh man, that story you told about whatever was that, I laughed so hard at that. And, that's like, for me, is a dream come true. And it's like, to be able to have even the smallest impact on somebody, just if I can explain one thing to them in a way that's not condescending, that's not jargon filled, but is like coming from a friend, then it was worth every second of writing. And so I'm working like on a follow-up, like a supplement right now. It's going to just be an ebook and it's going to be just a financial guide of, a checklist they can follow and a kind of a game plan you can follow to start to get your financial life in gear. And yeah, it's definitely just such a passion for me.
If you can make people laugh and help them with their finances at the same time, that is a skill set. That's amazing. It is.
Let me tell you, it is not easy. And a lot of it, you just can't make IRA's funny, but you can, if you have a story around an IRA, or you have it's all about storytelling and finding creative ways to get people interested in saving for retirement and get people interested in investing and get people interested in wanting to learn more about this stuff. And like, for example, on Thursday, I'm going to teach a financial literacy workshop up at a brewery in Marietta, Georgia.
Oh, nice.
And so we're going to drink beer. Yeah. And I was like, this is a win-win for me. So we're going to drink nice beer. I'm going to tell them some jokes, tell them some stories, and we're going to talk about getting out of debt and, managing your student loans and your consumer debt, whatever. And I was like, I know what kind of crowd it's going to be. And I'm hoping it's going to be a lot of young professionals and stuff, but maybe some of them might turn into clients. Maybe none of them will turn into clients, but still it feels like, I'm actually connecting with these people and presenting this much needed information in a way that is palatable, and maybe it'll spark their interest in wanting to continue their own financial education.
So talk to me about how, obviously with a book, you have a lot of stories and things like that bring humor into it. But like, how do you infuse humor into the financial planning process? I mean, is this something that's just when you're presenting, it's, easier to tell jokes and not jokes, but tell funny stories that bring humor in whenever you're, presenting? Or is this something that you're able to do in the actual financial planning process when you're working one-on-one with clients?
I mean, it's not always easy doing it in the one-on-one process. A lot of it is very cut and dry. There's only so much humor you can infuse, but with a few of my clients, I know personally, I'll make a lot of like self-deprecating jokes, and I like to use humor to kind of have them put their guard down, so I can find that when I use humor effectively, if I can tell a story about how I got out of debt and how I paid off my student loans, or how I was able to automate my finances or something like that, and kind of add a few jokes into it, or just a humorous spin into it, even if it is self-deprecating. What I find is so great is that they see the humanity in me, and then it allows them to put their guard down, and then I'm able to draw more information out. And so, I found out things about these people, their finances, or how they got into such bad credit card debt, or how they did this, what. I find out more details. And, so not only am I getting more valuable information out of it, but I'm also building this trust and building this relationship. And then most of the humor that I do is, within my blog. I have my own podcast that I do, and in my speaking engagements where I'm able to prepare and figure out what stories I want to tell and things like that. It's a little bit easier to make that humorous. But yeah, I try to keep every conversation that I have with clients light and, not intimidating, and really, so they, if I can make a joke or whatever, I'll absolutely do it, because I want them to see the humanity in me, and not just as, oh, she's this financial planner, all stuffy, the old school people. That's absolutely not me. I literally tell dirty jokes on the side up in Atlanta. You can come see me.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Was you said you do comedy on the side? So are you doing stand-up comedy?
So I do mostly sketch comedy. So I write sketch comedy for a theater group in Atlanta called Sketchworks Comedy, and we perform mostly at the Village Theater in Atlanta, Georgia. So definitely, I shout out to them. They've helped me become a much better writer in general, but humor writer especially. And I do a little bit of stand-up. I'm trying to do more this year because it really has made me a much better communicator with clients. It's made me a better communicator as far as public speaking goes. It's made me much more confident in myself just as a human being. And I think there are so many benefits to getting up on a stage and just, wearing your heart on your sleeve, and every audience is different. So you don't know if your jokes are going to hit or miss. And so it's terrifying and horrifying at times, but it's honestly it's really made me a better financial planner, which is a crazy thing to just even think about. But, and I only know there's one guy who travels around teaching financial literacy and uses comedic storytelling. And so it's me and one other guy doing this. So I think the opportunity for me is really there. And I think I've really found a very interesting and neat niche market. So I'm excited about it.
All right. So Village Theater, if anyone wants to see see our comedian financial planner, I don't know. Do you work finances into your sketch comedy, or is there sort of a line there you're able to do some other stuff?
I'm able to do some other stuff. The funny thing is a lot of the actors in that community and stuff, and a lot of the other writers and stuff, they come to me for all of their financial questions.
Of course.
And it's been actually kind of a nice little gold mine of potential clients, which is awesome. It's all these, creative people who are like, oh man, like I need to work with you. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So that's been pretty cool. But yeah, I do talk about other things. For as much as I love personal finance, I also love other things as well. So I do talk about a lot of different topics.
Well, I love the interweaving. We'll call that a word. The weaving. I was going to say interwoven, but the weaving of these, of two seemingly completely separate topics, right? Which is personal finance and comedy. And just the fact that, as you said, like comedy is an opportunity to be able, it's communication, right? That's really it is. It's learning how to talk to people, and it's learning how to communicate what you're trying to, and be able to articulate that to the audience, whether it be a comedy audience or it be, your financial planning clients. Just a really cool, I don't know, I think that's cool how you've been able to blend two worlds that weren't supposed to be blended. And yet you're finding a lot of success doing that, which is so cool.
Yeah. And I just, my very first TEDx talk back in January, and the video's not posted yet, but I'm told it'll be posted sometime within the next decade, hopefully. I guess it takes forever for it to get approved and put online. But so I did my TEDx talk on, and it's going to be titled Finding the Funny in Financial Literacy. And I talk a lot about my own journey and stuff. And I talk about how strange it is. And I'm fully aware of how weird a combination it is that I, during the day, write financial plans, and at night I write sketch comedy and stand-up comedy, and like how those things don't at all go together. But I've actually done a lot of research into this, and there's a lot of science into the obviously financial literacy and illiteracy. There's an epidemic in America where like 75% of women and 66% of the general population can't pass a basic financial literacy test. And so if that's the case, then they're not going to even see the value in financial planning until we first promote financial education. And then secondly, humor is an effective teaching tool. And that, if you think about where most young people get their news, it's the Daily Show. It's, like Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, Full Frontal with Samantha Bee. And what all these shows have in common, they take these tedious, complex, confusing topics, and they break them down in a digestible but humorous way. And it's gotten a lot of people interested in the news. It's gotten a lot of people involved in current events. And I was like, you know what? If they can do that with these news topics that normally no one would care about, why can't we do that with financial literacy? And so it started out as an experiment, and now it's kind of become my life's purpose, really. and so I think there's so much opportunity there that I never knew existed, and I think the industry as a whole never knew existed, because it's so out there as far as an idea. But I am determined to make the world just a little bit more financially literate, and then through humor, and then hopefully that will bring more people into the financial planning sphere. So that's the long-term plan.
Yeah, you make a great point that, one of probably John Oliver had this like massive impact on the U.S. whenever he did his bit on fiduciary and trying to find a fiduciary 401k provider. So for anybody who hasn't watched that, go look up John Oliver fiduciary.
Yeah.
And he single-handedly taught more people about the word fiduciary and what it meant than probably anybody else has, including the Department of Labor ruling. And to your point, did it in a humorous way and was able to make it funny without making light of it, because it was a very serious topic that he was ticked off about, which was cool to see. And so, what of that can we learn, to be able to leverage in our practices, which, is so cool. So you said, so financial literacy is sort of, we'll call it your life's purpose at this point. So what do you see the financial planning firm and doing one-on-one work with clients continuing? Do you see it sort of fading away and focusing on more, we'll say, group-based or some other form of financial literacy? Or do you see a combination of the two for your future?
Yeah, well, right now it's, I hate to say yes or no for sure, because my business has changed so much in the last 2 years that I'm really not 100% sure at this point. I love working with the people that I do work with right now. I think they're fantastic clients, and I really want to continue that relationship. And I do want to bring a few more people on, but then I'll probably cap it. But then at the same time, I am getting more opportunities to go speak. I'm getting, opportunities to set up workshops. And for me, my next big goal is to set up online courses where I can then see if it's possible to infuse humor into like an online course atmosphere and see how that works. And so for me right now, it's like 50-50. I spend 50% of the time doing the traditional financial planning stuff, and then the other half of the time prepping and getting ready and booking these speaking gigs and these workshops and writing. And so, we'll see. I guess
we'll see.
we'll
I love it.
See. Yeah.
So with the speaking engagements, is that something you charge for? Do you, whether it be for speaking or workshops, like, do you actually charge a fee for to host those?
Yeah, so it depends. Normally, I try to charge a fee, and I'm not like Barack Obama bringing in $400,000 a speaking gig or anything like that.
It's right.
I wish that would be great, but it depends. Like a lot of times if it's like I've had a couple nonprofits reach out, and they work with underprivileged and underserved teenagers and things like that. And I will absolutely go speak for free with groups that, I think are maybe underserved, or they don't have the budget. I'm always willing to negotiate, but and a lot of times, like, I'm going to speak at a couple conferences, and I'm not going to make any money off of those or anything, but I think it's just to get the exposure and to, it's a chance for me to promote my message. But yeah, I do. I normally do charge. It's anywhere from, I guess, normally $500 up to like $5,000 at this point, which, is not bad, because I just started this like less than a year ago. But yeah, I'm trying to do more paid gigs. But absolutely, if it's a group or a cause that's kind of close to my heart, I don't have a problem speaking for free.
It's sort of an interesting delineation. It's like if you're speaking to people that are not prospective clients, you don't charge. But if you're speaking to people that are prospective clients, you do charge, which normally we think of it as the opposite. We're like, oh, I'm here. I could be getting clients. I don't need to charge. But it really is okay to charge for your time and charge for your expertise, that you're up there and you're taking time out of your life to not only present, but people underestimate what it takes to build a presentation. And the development of content is the hard part, especially if it's, custom content that you're only doing one time. But, you can be compensated for that, and it's okay to charge for it. But, to your point as well, it's also okay to be able to go and take advantage of some cool opportunities to help people that you normally wouldn't be able to reach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It is rewarding. And for me, it's sometimes I go into it and it's, I think, oh man, if I land one client out of this speaking gig, it'll be so awesome. But a lot of times, most of the things that I do, most of the speaking gigs that I do, I go into it thinking, if anything, I'm just promoting this message of financial literacy. And for me, it's not always, it is so close to my heart, because I was a broke millennial, a financially illiterate human being, aimlessly wandering the earth at one point. And and it's like, if I feel like I'm doing the right thing for the right reason. And, if I don't make any money off of it, that's okay, because I feel like I'm putting out good karma into the world, and doing the right thing anyway. So I try to take that approach to as many of the speaking gigs as possible.
So where are these speaking engagements coming from? Is it the book? Is it the podcast, or just sort of a mix?
It's a mix. I've kind of been actively trying to grow my audience. I also I put a profile up on speakerservices.com, which is just kind of like this speaker agency. They have thousands of speakers on there, and you can kind of just build a profile of what you want to talk about and who your best audiences are and where you'll travel to. And it was like a couple $100 for, I guess, 7 or 8 months or something. They'll keep your profile up there before you have to renew it. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll get a couple speaking gigs from it, and it'll pay for itself. But I've actually maybe get 1 or 2 inquiries a week from that site. Yeah, which I have been shocked about. And actually, I would encourage, I talked to the lady who runs the agency, and she said that financial literacy speakers are very much in demand right now. And if you can kind of put your own spin on it, like I put myself out there as like a humorous financial literacy speaker, if you focus specifically on women or on college students or this or that, the other thing, whatever you think you might be good at, that it's very much in demand. And I think it's a great opportunity that, and you're not going to get clients from every gig, but it's getting your name out there, and you're developing not only an audience, but kind of, people who see you as trustworthy and see you as an expert and see you as someone who really wants what's best for people. And I think that's super important.
And just for my own curiosity, are you charging for the speaking engagements that are coming through that service? Is that sort of a side hustle income opportunity, or is it primarily marketing?
Yeah. No, it's definitely a side hustle. So it depends. Again, like I had like a church group reach out to me that last week. They have like no budget, so if I go do it, it's probably going to be for free. And just because it was like a youth church group was reaching out. But then I got another gig from this corporate entity out in Los Angeles, and they have a group of millennial workers, and as part of their perks of their employee, as an employee perk, they offer once a month workshops and webinars on different topics, and they wanted someone who could speak on managing student loans. And so they reached out to me and they said, hey, we can pay you X amount of dollars to speak for an hour over like a webinar. So I'm going to get like $600 for an hour just to talk to this group about managing student loans, like the real all they wanted was like really basic stuff. And, you come up with a presentation, and it's things like that. So every gig that comes through to my email, they're all different. I could get 10 in a row that are like definitely not going to be paying gigs, or I could get 10 in a row that are going to pay me $1,000 to $3,000 a piece. I just, you don't know, but I think every opportunity you can speak and get in front of people is a good opportunity. And I think it will lead to more paying gigs. And so it definitely, I'm actually shocked at how much of a side hustle it's become for me, and how in the first, I guess, 6 months that I've been doing it, it's been more lucrative than I anticipated. So I'm super excited about it. So
that's awesome. Yeah. And I would say that most of my speaking engagements come from people hearing me speak. So it is one of those, like, you gotta have engagements to get engagements, but getting those first couple is so critical. And that's why you do them for free, usually early on, but you're putting yourself out there, you're learning, you're getting in front of the right people, and then you can start charging and you keep raising those fees. And when, a lot of times I find people that say they have no budget do have a budget. They just don't know it yet, maybe, or they haven't found the money yet. And it's all about allocating dollars.
Yeah. And one of my things is helping to teach, as part of my financial planning and stuff. A lot of times I end up helping the young women that I work with, teach them how to be better negotiators and stuff. And so this has helped me become a more proficient negotiator. So then, I'm not just teaching people, this nonsense that I don't apply in my own life. So it's actually had a lot of benefits in that regard too.
That's awesome. What would you recommend for advisors that are looking to learn some of the tenets that you have and that you've been learning through your through doing comedy and that sort of thing? Like, I took an improv class one time, and I swear, like, I was terrified to do it. I hate things like that, but I had a couple drinks, did it, and it was just an awesome learning experience. So are there things that, opportunities that advisors could take advantage of that you'd recommend to be able to learn some of these sort of core competencies that you have now to be able to be better communicators as financial advisors?
Yeah, well, you just said it. I think everybody should take an improv class.
Honestly, the awkwardness.
if you can get through an improv class, and it is awkward and it is difficult and it is so hard to just let yourself be and be present in a moment and not, it's the whole thing of where we're constantly trying to formulate responses. We're not listening to people, and improv makes us better listeners. It makes us better communicators. And it seems silly and it's stupid. And not to mention, you'll end up having a lot of fun, especially if you have like a group of people that you're taking the class with that are kind of just, willing to be silly, willing to fail, willing to let themselves look stupid. If you're all just willing to let your guard down, you can learn so much about communication and how to be more effective in your communication. And I think improv is like the most underrated communication tool that there is. And I would think wherever you're located, there is probably an improv class with a bunch of weirdo theater geeks going on right now within like an hour of you. And I would go sign up. They are everywhere. Go sign up, go do one immediately. And I just think, I do a lot of sketch comedy, which is scripted, but, it's like Saturday Night Live type of stuff. But getting on a stage and allowing yourself to look stupid and be silly and really let people see the human side of you, I think will make you a more confident human being and teach you, okay, this works to get through to people, but this doesn't work to get through to people, and how to reach people on an even deeper level. And so I think comedy has been by far the best communication class I have ever taken in my life. And that's saying a lot because I went to a very nice communication school and, spent like $250,000 on that. So,
and seems so happy about it.
Exactly.
And for anyone who thinks that improv is just for theater nerds, as you say, Kitsis is heavily involved in an improv theater there in the DC area.
Nice.
So even Michael Kitsis is involved in improv. So maybe maybe we can host something improv related at at one of our national conferences.
Oh my God,
that might be fun.
I would be
get some people in a room together. Can you teach it, or because that would make my life a lot easier?
I guess I haven't taught improv before, but you know what? I'm all about saying yes to new opportunities. So
there you go.
It'll be one of those things that makes XY stand out even more.
We have daycare and we have improv. Welcome to XYPN Live. So what I hear, what I've learned through this, interview and just hearing all the various pieces that you talked about, the common thread to me is really authenticity. And I know that word gets thrown around to the point that it's become a cliche now, but being authentic is so critical, and just being yourself and being able to just relax a little bit and just be willing to embrace who you are and show your clients who you are. And if you want to tell dirty jokes to your clients or on stage, like whatever, you can do that because that's who you are and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And you'll attract a certain client base and you will repel a client base, and that's okay. You don't need the clients that don't like you for who you are.
Right, exactly. And I think, Kitsis talks a lot about when you have this mindset of abundance, and it's not so much wanting to please everybody. By being yourself, you are going to kind of weed out the people that you don't want. And I don't want people who don't have a sense of humor. I like to work with people who really honestly need my help, but they are willing to, not take all of this stuff too seriously. And for me to say, okay, I know we've got a lot to work on. I know that, you got a long way to go, and we've got our goals set and we're working towards them. But you know what? Sit back and take a deep breath and kind of laugh. It's okay. And just kind of, it promotes, I think the humor thing kind of really promotes relaxation and calmness and telling people it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And again, it is, I think, the best way for me to be myself around people who, it's a new relationship. So they don't know me, but they can kind of get to know me in that way. And I think it's the quickest way to build up trust, build up a relationship where they know I'm human and I know they're human, and we're going to get through this together, and kind of hopefully I can help them live their dream.
Absolutely. That is the goal. And sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that.
Yeah.
We get so caught up on running the analysis that we forget the fun part about what we do.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious, 2 years in now or running up on it, what would you say has been the biggest challenge that you've had in starting, running, growing this financial planning firm and all the other things that you're involved in?
Well, for a long time, it was trying to find what my voice was going to be, and trying to find, because, and I just talked about this in my TED Talk, my messaging sounded exactly like everybody else when I started, and I wasn't getting clients. And, I had the family and the friends clients that were just keeping me afloat. But it got to a point where I'm sitting here at my laptop thinking, working on a financial plan and wondering how long it was going to be before I was like forced to return to a diet of ramen noodles and Hot Pockets, that it came to my mind, like, how can I be myself? How can I connect with people? And then I was like, you know what, maybe I will try to infuse a little humor. And then, so finding my own path was the most difficult thing, but it was also the most important thing. And then, now that I've done that, it's, how can I continue to scale it? In what direction do I want to go now? Do I want to only teach these financial literacy workshops and travel the country, or do I want to still work one-on-one with people? Because I do love both. And so that's kind of my next big obstacle. But yeah, and figuring out how do you scale this business that's based on humor and financial education, and it's kind of never been done before in this way. So I'm kind of going in, I have a vision for where I would like it to go, but that could change. But yeah, I would say for anyone who's just getting started, to figure out what your unique voice is, because so often all these firms, and now I look at all these different firms, and I just actually consulted with a bigger firm up in Albany, New York, and because they're trying to do what I do, but it didn't work for them because they aren't me. And I was like, you got to find your own voice. Like, you got to find your own ideas of how to connect with this group, and don't just, say, oh, we have to connect with millennials because, they're the next big, they're going to be your big money makers. That's not genuine. That's not authentic. You got to find your unique voice and understand that, you're not going to please everybody. And, my grandma absolutely hates my book and absolutely hates the way I do my financial planning. And,
oh, that's
but
amazing.
that's okay, because she's not my target demographic. And so, that's what I would say is the quicker you can find out who you are as a planner and a person, and someone who works with certain people, the better. Because we always talk about, oh, who's your niche market? Are you going to work with this group or that group or whatever? But I think just as important is finding out who you are as a planner, and I think maybe we sometimes overlook that.
Yeah, it's a great point that we're trying to make it known that having a niche market is not about a menu selection, right? It's about saying who you are and who you want to work with, instead of just being bland, and that if your stuff looks like everybody else's stuff, it's just not going to work. So how do you differentiate whether it's, that, even to the point that it's using humor in your practice and your planning process can differentiate you, and that starts to develop your niche beyond just, being like everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, that for a long time was missing in this industry. But I think, and I love seeing it with all the people in XY that, especially the ones that I am close to, that I saw, like Meg Bartelt, and I was with Tim Baker and all them, and seeing how they chose their niche market fit them as a human being, and how awesome that is, and how that's what's going to make you thrive.
Such a great point. So as we're sort of coming to a close, I'll ask you the final question. So if there's, one piece of advice, one thing you wish you could go back and tell your younger self, what do you think that piece of advice would be?
I would tell myself not to be so scared and not to be such a people pleaser. When I was younger, I was terrified. Actually, yes, comedy was something I wanted to do from the time I was 8 years old. And I used to have I was one of those, nerdy kids that had Saturday Night Live on VHS. And I loved to write and I loved funny stuff. I loved funny people, but I was too scared to do it myself because I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think I was funny enough. And I just didn't have that confidence. And it took me literally 30 years, almost 30 years to get to a point where I am comfortable with myself and I'm not scared. I'm not scared to try things. If I fail at it, I fail at it. If this, and I think a big part of that was launching my own business. It forced me to kind of face my fears. And if I fail at this, I failed at it, but at least I tried. And so, looking back, I would just tell myself not to be such a scaredy cat about stuff and just know that you are enough. And I would tell that to every young person. I know how competitive of a world we live in, but you yourself are enough. And so you shouldn't be scared of trying the things you want to try. You are enough. I love that. I think that is just, that single takeaway is worth listening to this entire episode for. So thank you for that. Thanks. Well, Catie, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and share your story. I really do appreciate you taking the time. And hopefully the next time I'm in Atlanta, because that's where my folks are from, cool. Next time I'm down there, I have to stop in Village Comedy. That's right. So come see a show. So that'll be fun. I will be there. All right. Well, thank you so much. All right. Thanks, Alan. Missed calls or missed opportunities. Don't miss the chance to connect or bring on a new client. With Ruby, all your calls are answered live by a team of friendly, professional, remote receptionists, helping you win more clients and build trust. Let Ruby help you turn rings into relationships. For a special offer, visit callruby.com/XYPN and use promo code XYPN or call them at 1-844-853-7829. Be sure to join our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to hang out with other XYPN radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes with myself and Kitsis, and to finally find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thanks so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time. You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm. And that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.